Hey people, welcome back to another review session from Ian and Chris. We're both fresh off of Thor Ragnarok, and we have waited and waited and waited, and Christmas has come early. Or has it?
Ah, we'll tell you.
Oh boy.
We'll let you know. We'll let you know, and we'll say it. We'll say it in really weird tones too, just like Ian did there.
You know, you gotta give the element of suspense or suspension of disbelief or something.
Thor Ragnarok, Thor 3. This is the this is the non-spoiler review. I did it too. This is the non-spoiler review. We're going to be doing this a little bit differently. We'll be doing the spoiler review and discussion immediately after this one, so you can go and listen to that right away if you want. If you've already seen the movie, you just want to know what people think about it. Otherwise, if you haven't seen the movie yet, you're trying to make a decision if you're going to see it, that this is the one that you want to watch. This is what you want to listen to first. So, where should we start, Ian?
Well, here we are. I mean, the big thing we besides going into the plot a whole lot, I want to look at this from a kind of zoomed out view first. Overall, where is this fitting? Where are we looking at Marvel at this point? Where are we? Also, just sort of the feel and the pace of this. So before jumping into the meat and potatoes here, one just kind of offhanded comment in general I can make about this is there's a sort of different vibe of comfort that I felt, at least with Marvel, sort of in their own films. Now, for me, this started in the last Guardians of the Galaxy 2. There was a lot of freewheeling, a lot of free roaming comedy mixed in with the standard action we're used to in big, grand epic scenes. But in the same hand, not taking itself too seriously to sort of, put everything in a darker tone or like dilute everything. It's Marvel's really truly stepped into this at this point. They're having fun with it. It's what it seems like to me, and I think that's translated here in Thor Ragnarok. You have a lot of different story elements happening. If you're not just if you're comparing, comics and things like that, but all during that time, there's a lot of comedy interjected throughout. There's a lot of sort of just awful kilter moments, off-kilter banter, things like that. Not saying these didn't exist in some of the previous Marvel films and Avengers and stuff, but not quite in this way. When we had a big bad villain monologue, I mean, thinking of that being interrupted would just be weird, or like a heresy. Like, it didn't happen, but that does happen here. When you have a really serious situation, you're never pulled in too much to the point where that's where you sit and that's where you stand. The humor sort of does a bit of a, I think, roller coaster with everything, but it didn't feel awkward, or to me at least, it didn't feel forced. If anything, it's Marvel having fun with it, and this is interesting considering how gritty this is about to get as we get into Avengers 3 and everything else.
I would have to disagree with some of that. I will say that they because it is a very funny movie. In fact, some people have said this is the funniest movie. I would say this doesn't quite go as far as Guardians of the Galaxy and Galaxy 2.
Right.
Humor is a big part of this movie from start to finish. We'll talk about whether that's a good or bad thing. But this is also a very dark movie. I mean, if you've seen commercials, if you've seen any of the trailers, Hela, the main villain, has come back from being captive. She has found a way to be freed, which we're not going to talk about, and at least not here. She has come back, and she's come to rule Asgard, and with that comes a lot of destruction.
Yeah,
a lot of destruction.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this, and hopefully it's not too much. In a non-spoiler, I will say that this movie, more than any other Marvel movie, has you say goodbye to a lot of named characters.
Yeah.
Is that saying too much?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So, and we have not seen that before. At the same time, this is very much a buddy movie.
Yeah.
Like they said it was going to be. I would say that it walks these different lines.
It does.
Well.
Yeah.
But it is a little off-putting at the same time. I will say this, and I think we're going to disagree on this. I think, so I guess this is a good place to start. The humor in this movie, while it is there and it is funny, and I did enjoy it a lot. At the same time, and I'm going to say this specifically for Chris Hemsworth, who's a great comedic actor
Oh yeah.
and doesn't get a chance to really flesh it out. And while it was good, it was out of place here. It felt a bit out of place in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I'm with you. You're good.
Okay, all right. I thought I clicked something on my on my mic.
No,
there.
you're fine.
Him and Tom Hiddleston are great together. This is their, I think, their fourth movie that they've done together, at least just in the MCU. The three Thors and Avenger.
Yep.
They're great together. They work well together. It felt like at times that Chris Hemsworth is acting, he's Thor, this is Thor acting as a funnier version of Thor.
Right.
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Like the character's hamming it up.
Do you think, well, here, do you think any of that sort of follows the kind of freewheeling stuff that we saw in the what was that called? Those little snippets, those vignettes, the Avengers in between what Thor was doing. And,
Team Thor.
Team Thor.
I think that does come from that, and I think what made that great was that, and that was also not supposed to be canon, and I believe it's still not canon. Those things are not canon. It just, it just felt like a little too much.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, there were some great moments in this movie where he's funny, and it's kind of a naturally funny situation considering what's going on, and that felt authentic and that felt good. But then there are times where it's like, geez, really? I mean, I don't know if this was necessarily the best time or place to be doing that.
Right. I mean, when you place the setting, and if you even from the very title that's given away here, with the event of Ragnarok in Norse myth, this is an end of endings. That's a pretty grand premise if you really think about what you're launching into, and it definitely doesn't fail to live up to that. I think
no.
The part of the good thing about this, and I was really worried pacing wise how this was going to be portrayed, how much was going to be focused on that Ragnarok theme,
right.
How to walk that line with the sort of buddy travel between Hulk and Thor, and they do. You're led into this film with the very thing that it's titled for, and just at the moment you think that's the main parallel you're going to follow for like the next hour, it'll throw you off balance a little bit. And that's just you don't stay in that focus. I think Marvel found a way to sort of pull focus away from a very major event that's constantly happening in the background to sort of give us a picture of, okay, where at this point, where's Hulk? We slowly get to find out, filling in details. Okay, where's he been? How much time has passed? Why has he been in the Hulk state so long? And how are Thor and Loki and others? How's that displacement happen? How do they end up where they are? One of the main trailer things you constantly see for Thor Ragnarok is Thor in a gladiator arena. How the heck does he get there? And if anything, that little early narrative that's told about, you might be wondering why I'm here, why I lost my hammer. We get all of that, and it's built in a pretty good way.
It does it well too. It feels like most of Act 1 and 3 focus on the main story here, which is Ragnarok and Hela. But there's a big chunk, the majority of the movie, Act 2 and parts of Act 1 and 3, which are really somewhere else. And we revisit what's going on. And it all flows okay. It all flows fine. I think the pacing's fine too. It could have been a little bit better. It could have been a little bit tighter as far as how they're telling these stories. But it does feel like coming out of this thing that the main story is kind of it's a side. As you said, it goes into the background.
Yeah.
The movie starts and it ends with it.
Right.
Pretty well, but then it's like, hey, that's kind of like, it's kind of like dinner.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you got your three things here for dinner. You're gonna eat the first thing, maybe eat your vegetables first if you're that guy,
Right.
and then at the end, you're gonna eat your mashed potatoes. But then the middle of it, the meat of it,
Yeah.
is all this, and that's where all the the laughs are, most of them, and that's where most of this is where they really wanted their focus to be, which I guess is okay. But it definitely, it's like, hey, we wanted you to have funs and laughs with Thor and Hulk and everything that's going on with that, and you get that, and it's fun.
Right.
But I think this movie did have a little bit of a identity conflict,
And I think that's a fair critique. As you're looking at how these events are built and how they're placed, and especially how serious Ragnarok is, in introducing the characters who are going to bring that about, introducing the figures that are going to be involved, especially when they had no part in the previous Thor movies. And they also had no part in any of the previous MCU stuff or any of the previous Marvel films. This is all new content that you're starting right here. So,
you had Thor, you had Loki, you had Hulk, and that's pretty much it. Right.
So, when you introduce, again, another big giver from the trailers, I mean, you introduced old Flamehead, and you start talking about, Surtur and others. This is something that I think involves should have rightfully some gravity to it. As we talk about it now, I kind of think back to it and looking at sort of where spots of humor may be misplaced, even though Marvel's having a lot of fun with all this. I look at where they placed that earlier on with Surtur, and then I look and I start to think about Doctor Strange when he encountered Dormammu. And when Dormammu was introduced, this is serious. The guy is pretty much about to eat the world, or more. I mean, there's no real place for humor here. I mean, it's Strange trying to do a last-minute solution, how he's going to figure out how to get Earth out of the situation, how he's going to get himself out of this. And he ends up causing that time loop with that artifact. But then I compare that to that moment here in Thor about not running into Dormammu, of course, but him meeting Surtur for the first time, and just that conversation. That's something that should have a lot of gravity, because in the comics, this guy was no joke. He isn't. He isn't here either. But some of that conversation, the way that dialogue unfolds, the way some of that start unfolds, really sort of rolls him to the B list. Right. When this guy is like serious, fiery underworld Norse mythology, like A list. The least. So that
that's part of the problem with the movie, I think, and kind of what we touched on is the fact that again, as Thor, and from the comics and from what we've seen at times in the movies, Thor, he's Thor, and he knows he's Thor, and he's powerful and he's huge and he's worthy of Mjolnir. 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 Mjolnir, and no one else is, and he's got a huge ego, and he's as strong as the Hulk, kinda, and so you could have a lot of fun and humor with that, with Thor being Thor and the kind of person he is, and they do, but not always. And sometimes, the interactions that you have with Thor is not, he's Thor and he's got a huge ego and, his shit doesn't stink. And that's where, it just, the element of the character doesn't come from that place. Right. Where it seems like a lot of times they probably could have drawn from that and it would have been even better. And again, everything was fine. In fact, everything was good. Yeah. But it just felt like there was missed opportunity here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, especially we're at the point now in the Thor movies where he's really dealt with a lot of his existential crises. When we're first introduced to Thor in film one, there's this notion of successorship. Odin is realizing his time, how everything is passed, and realizing that, hey, I should probably look at who I need to be handing the throne off to. And he's on the verge, giving that to Thor, realizes that he does not have the maturity to do it, strips him of his rank, his power, his hammer, until he goes through this process of really rekindling, earning things back, and really stepping into his role. So we see this sort of that growth, that maturity. He had movie one to sort of reclaim. He had movie two to sort of grow, mature. Now movie three, here he's really fully stepping into that role in Asgard and what's going to be his obvious future. as king, especially as we enter this movie still with the same status we had previously. We knew that Odin was missing, finding out why he's missing, and seeing Thor, I think, step into leadership in his own different, unique way.
Right. I mean, well, that's the other part of the story that, I mean, that's what we did, outside of what you saw from trailers, this is what we did know was going to be in this movie was, where's Odin? What's Loki done?
Right.
And from the after credit scenes from Doctor Strange that he was going, Doctor Strange was going to get involved in that, which was cool. Now that's kind of what I'm talking about. That was a great situation where those characters and who they are worked really well together in a very humorous way.
Yeah,
and that was perfect. And there's a lot of that in this movie. I think part of the problem with this movie, and again, a great movie. I know we're talking negatively, and I think that's because there's so much that's done right and so much that's done differently.
Right.
That what they got wrong is really kind of glaring. Yeah,
it is.
But it's one of those things where you did so well, what you didn't do well is very obvious. If you don't mind if I shift gears on this for a little bit, talking about the cast, a lot of people are saying Cate Blanchett did an awesome job as Hela. I would agree.
Yes, she did.
That was a lot of fun, but I would have to say that the standout for this movie, let me know if you agree or not, is Jeff Goldblum as the Grand Master.
Oh, by far.
That was awesome.
By far. Yeah, no, I'm
so awesome. This is Jeff Goldblum, who has been doing movies for decades, just comes in with a bit part in a Marvel movie and just drops the mic and just like, there it is. Let me come into your Marvel movie and just own this motherfucker.
I think it's his ability to take a role and really kind of mold and add a spark to it you wouldn't expect. With Grandmaster, even with who he is, really there's a lot of room for what they can do with him in MCU and sort of interpretation of the character. So who you pick to act that is a serious choice. And the Grandmaster was the one character, it's what I loved about him, who sort of didn't fit the mold that you would have thought he'd be in. Most, either dictators or those running, gladiatorial arenas and stuff like that, you expect them to either be over characteristically brutal or evil or have some kind of, subpar agenda or whatever else, or detached. He didn't follow any of those tropes. He made this his own.
Yeah, no, and I was going to say, in the past, Grandmasters normally, he's normally so uncaring of his demeanor that he does come off as very callous and very vicious. I would say that's also done here, but in a very passive kind of way.
Yeah.
And he's a lot of fun, and it's Jeff Goldblum being awesome.
Yep.
It's why so many people just say he's whatever he touches is just the best. He was great here. The acting was well done. We haven't touched on a lot of that. The visuals were great. The audio is great. This is a lot of typical Marvel stuff. I mean, it is very colorful. It is very bright. The visuals are fantastic. The directing is great. All of it. There's really, if you've seen a Marvel movie, especially a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, because this is again another space movie. You're in space doing a lot of that. If you've seen those, then you're getting, I would say, a variation of that style, because it's not quite the same, but it's the best way to describe it, I think.
No, I agree. And of course, as you're mentioning, visually and with the quality you would expect at this point from Marvel, with how late in the run we are for MCU leading up to Avengers 3, none of, there's so little we have to touch on with that, because they have kept that quality and exceeded it in some ways. So zero gripes there.
This is not. Yeah, this is your. You get into other movies like Winter Soldier or the upcoming Black Panther, which clearly have different visual styles to them.
Right.
You're not finding a new style here. This is very much like I said, the Guardian of the Galaxy's movie. It's very colorful. It's very bright. You're seeing different worlds. It's visually just a superior movie. Right. Which is what you come to expect from the Marvel movies. So, but yeah, I do think this movie kind of gets in its own way, though.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong; it's a lot of fun, and it's good. Again, It's one of those things where it's like, hey, this thing was so awesome that what you did wrong is kind of kind of showing up here. If you are a comic book fan, if you are a hardcore Thor comic book fan, you're probably going to be even a little upset with this.
Yeah, I could see that. Just at the moment when you think that there might be some really sweet lore getting built with some maybe aspects of Asgard you haven't seen before, or not just with Surtur and others, but looking at this whole Ragnarok theme, just when you think that's about to get exploded and really, really expanded, it doesn't. Right. It sort of reaches a slimmer point, and then it just settles the rest of the film there. So don't I wouldn't go into this expecting a really, really deep exploration of any of that.
No, this is very much, and this could be said about Thor as well for the MCU version of Thor, who is very different from, at least from the roots of the comic character. This is very much an MCU Thor. Which is, for someone like myself who loves the MCU, who loves comics, but is not a big Thor fan from the comics, I'm okay with it. Yeah, I'm okay with it. But if you're loving how the MCU does their versions of your favorite comic book character and how they teeter on the line of something new and something old, this one goes definitely a lot in the aspect of the new. You might not be totally happy with that. All right.
Good stuff.
I don't think we have anything else for non-spoilers though.
No, hey, that's fair. The rest we'll be talking about in our next segment, which will include spoilers. We're going to be delving directly in the story, everything else we hit.
We got to rate this first though.
We do. Out of how many Hulk Fist out of 10?
We're going to do Hulk Fists?
Yeah.
No, but those come in pairs. So are we doing pairs of Hulk Fists? Or are we doing just one Hulk Fist? So is one Hulk Fist, or is one a pair of Hulk?
Well, I say Hulk Fist because this is like a real buddy story. You want to do that bro fist. So you can say like a Hulk Fist here and then maybe like a Thor Fist later.
Now that's confusing me because now you're talking about possibly 4 fists. So now you've completely confused me.
One Hulk Fist each.
Okay. I'm gonna give this, despite the fact that I basically spoke negatively about this movie most of the time. Yeah. I'm gonna go with an 8. This is a solid, fun movie.
It is.
It's definitely ranking up there, I think, in my top 10 MCUs.
Same.
I think as far as this year, looking at the MCU movies, I think it is coming in 3rd out of 3. We don't count Inhumans because that was a giant pile of TV garbage. So we're not counting that release as an actual movie. So yeah, it comes in 3rd for me, but just because the other 2 were so good, and I know a lot of people are already saying that it's coming in. And people are all over with it. Some are saying it's their favorite this year. Some are saying that it's right in the middle. You're hearing the same thing about Spider-Man as well. But
right.
This was still fun though. This was still a lot of fun. It didn't quite live up to the hype for me, but the hype was pretty high. So I enjoyed it. The stuff with the Hulk was fantastic.
Yes, it was.
That was every bit as fun, and actually more fun than I thought it was going to be.
Cool. My side of this, I will give it 8, but also I'll add another half. That is that Hulk Fist is partially embedded inside of a robot or whatever else you want. It's going to tear it apart in a minute. But 8.5.
8.5. Okay.
I say that because many of the same reasons you do. Very solid for especially the amount of hype this has had behind it, the amount we've been expecting it. There is, of course, some things about Asgard lore itself. Ragnarok, Surtur, and stuff I would have liked to have heard, I guess, a bit more about. Jump into that a bit more. But it's about all I got. And honestly, we got so much love for Marvel at this point, I think it's fair to give our honest critique. Give some tough love where we can. But yeah, real solid. Definitely enjoyed it. And I think this one's going to grow on me, too, over time.
I think I definitely need to see this one again.
Same here.
All right, so we're gonna go into, if you want to continue, we're gonna go into the spoilers, and we're gonna do some full discussions and review on the movie at this point. Then, because we're gonna spill all the beans. Otherwise, we'll see you for our next review.
Cool. Thanks for listening. See you after the jump. Hey people, thank you for tuning into this episode and taking a listen. If you like our content, if you like what you're listening to, there anything we go over, hey, please, we would not only love to hear more from you, but it'd be great if you could throw some support. You can subscribe right below. Also, you can toss us a line anytime. That's ksongmedia@gmail.com. Of course, you can tune in for our channel anytime for movie reviews, game reviews, a lot of random wacky stuff. Yeah, who knows what you'll hear. And of course, our episode each week where we're bringing the nerdiest things we can find, dig up, and maybe not find. Maybe the stuff that just drops in our laps. But anyway, hey, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for listening. We hope to hear from you again later. Take care.